You are watching The Horizon, the voice of the Amba woman, exclusively on ABC Amba TV.
Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon. Welcome to The Horizon, the voice of the Amba woman. My name is Dr. Patience Abiedu, and I'm your host for today's program. We have two topics today. We will see if we can get through both of them completely. If not, we'll continue next week. Let me first start by, as usual, expressing my gratitude, my appreciation for all of you, especially our ASA that defend our homeland every single day. I salute all our Southern Cameroonians, Amazonians residing in neighboring La République du Cameroon, those who are refugees all over the world. Greetings and welcome to this special program of The Horizon, the voice of the Amba woman. With me today is our permanent guest who comes on this show every month to impact you with a wealth of knowledge, wealth of information. Dr. Fred Lobati. Welcome to the Horizon, Doc, and take a minute to greet our audience.
Yes, thank you, Mape. Very happy to present today with you and talk with our people to demonstrate to them actually the changes that are occurring in Africa. And in spite of the vestiges of the colonial past plaguing Cameroon and Amazonia today, our future looks very bright. Our future will also be like exemplified by some of the dynamic leaders that we'll be talking about today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We've had at least 2 or 3 shows that we've talked about President Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. We see more and more very dynamic, great leaders coming from some countries in Africa. I'd like you to take a moment to share with our audience some of these examples of individuals who have exemplified themselves with great leadership. And then after you talk about them, we'll probably see a couple of videos giving examples of what is really happening. So, Doc, and the reason we're saying this is because we need change. We need serious change to make Africa a great continent, to make every single country in Africa a great nation. And we are particularly concerned about Southern Cameroons. We see this as examples, knowing that if everything that is happening the way it's going, the trend, then the future is bright for Amazonia, Southern Cameroon. So just talk to us about some of these leaders that have emerged and are doing great things for Africa.
Yeah, thank you, Mape. This is a wonderful thing to share with our people. In fact, change is a constant, and they say no condition is permanent. So I know that concerning our people in Amazonia or the former British Southern Cameroon, as well as the children of La République du Cameroon in the land called Cameroon today, ruled by Paul Biya, the level of suffering is so much they have actually given up. They feel like, what should we do? It's like they don't see any change coming. But yes, change is coming. We see it going all across Africa. We have seen wonderful examples occurring, particularly in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore, that the whole world is talking about. And some Western countries are doing everything to kill him because he's so successful in what he's doing and spectacular and a great example for other nations, developing his country and basically liberating his people from the grip and control of the French and collaborators that are literally exploiting the country. We saw change come to Mali as well as in Niger, and most recently we noticed in Senegal, which is very well French controlled, in spite of all their efforts to hold down the youths, that they were able to break through. And those that were locked up in jail were eventually released and eventually came to power. And now you have these young people who are in their early 40s, or some before the age of 40, like Ibrahim Traore, he was just about 35 or 36, ruling. And you see a leadership in Senegal coming to power, doing wonderful things for the people, asking the French to get out. And most recently, very interestingly, we noticed change in Ivory Coast. There was a rumor of a coup d'etat occurring over there. Again, because of the desire for change, the French had taken full control of Ivory Coast because of the fact that that country is extremely very wealthy and has a lot of natural resources in plantations like the cocoa plantations, as well as even gold, which is found in Ghana, and Ivory Coast is a neighbor of Ghana, has those kinds of resources. And the French thought they had everything under good control. But change has come there, and the change is still in evolution as we're talking in Ivory Coast. And then we noticed that even in Chad, where the French were trying to manipulate the leadership and remain in control by faking a coup, the leadership has decided to see the light and are telling the French to keep away and not interfere with their home country militarily. And they approach the leadership of Burkina Faso and the Sahel nations to see how they can work together. The French faked a coup in Gabon. We are watching that one. We're not very sure whether that guy is truly, authentically not under the control of the French. We believe that he's under the control of the French. But Gabon is a very small country. It's extremely very wealthy. It has only about 2 million people. So you may not see a rapid, quick change over there, but at least change is coming and is occurring there as well. We also noticed many African leaders are now looking up to Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso as an example for themselves. That means the old colonial style of government in some countries across Africa remain, but they are looking up to Ibrahim Traore as the example. And so this change is coming. And if they could affect change in Ivory Coast, just know that Cameroon is just a matter of time. And it is coming. There's no way you can prevent that from happening.
Wow, that's awesome. I mentioned earlier that there's some videos that we can show to really, show exactly what you're talking about. The current president of Senegal, Bassirou Diomaye Faye, I believe that's his name. There's a video out there that he's talking about France, about everything that France has taken from Africa. Let's listen to him.
Just oppression. Centuries of misery, human trafficking, colonization, and neocolonization have caused immeasurable suffering. It's time to put an end to this cycle of oppression. It's high time for France to leave us alone. It's time for France to take a cue from its European neighbors and learn a valuable lesson in independence. Germany is the leading economic power in Europe, significantly surpassing France, which is ranked as the third or fourth largest economic power globally. Germany does not exploit any country, any colony. I can mention Italy, I can mention Spain, who had colonies before, but who do not exploit anyone, who do not interfere, who do not impose leaders in their former colonies. On what grounds does France believe it can continue to impose leaders on us and make choices on our behalf? This must come to an end. And the emerging Africa, the African youth, the African elites, and the African diaspora all stand united in saying no, it cannot continue any longer. France's hypocrisy is evident and pervasive in daily life. Let's examine the cases of Mali and Chad as prime examples of this hypocrisy. In Chad, where the constitutional process has been interrupted, France applauded and its president visited to officially consecrate the new king's coronation ceremony. In Mali, where it is not the constitutional process that has been interrupted, but the transition process, France has condemned and even packed up its things to say that it is leaving Mali. That's hypocrisy. It's the double standard. It is the double language that France employs in its dealings with Africa. During our questioning of Mr. Jean-Yves Le Drian regarding the situation in Ivory Coast and France's decision to allow a third term, he provided a clear explanation. He stated that while he accepted the third term for Ouattara, he refuses it for Belarus. He emphasized that France has condemned the situation in Belarus and has actively encouraged the European Union to do the same. Le Drian explains that in Belarus, millions protested, unlike Ivory Coast, where there were no mass demonstrations on the streets. This is how France deals with African issues. Personally, we expect absolutely nothing from France. We desire her to cease meddling in our matters so that the people of Senegal can exercise their freedom of choice rather than being influenced by France's selection of a candidate using the tactics we are aware of. We begin by targeting individuals, adorning them with the Legion of Honor or a similar knightly rank, enlisting them in Masonic lodges, and informing them to prepare themselves as they will be next in line. Even the hypothesis that Macky Sall may not succeed, we know who is being prepared by France. This must come to an end. It will not occur in this manner any longer. Let's be clear. We have absolutely nothing against the French people. In France, both political and citizen voices are rising to hold and express the same discourse as the one I am currently presenting to you. For example, the deputies, such as Mrs. Frédérique Dumas, who regularly speaks on the platform of the Assembly, who regularly writes to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, since she is a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, to raise this unfair behavior of France towards Africa, hold the same speech as us. The same Mr. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, Jean-Paul Lecoq, André Chassaigne, all deputies, hold the same discourse as us, and hundreds of other voices. The NGOs, like other non-profit organizations, are doing remarkable work in the same direction. We strongly urge France to listen to the voices that speak to it about our plan for a more collaborative, fairer, and sustainable partnership between Africa and France. It is crucial that we work together towards a future that is equitable, just, and environmentally conscious. If she listens, I believe we'll have beautiful days ahead in our collaboration together. If he doesn't know how to cut it, thinking he can continue to function like in the time of our grandfathers, this African youth no longer accepts it. France must make preparations for a definitive break and completely withdraw from Africa. Africa belongs to Africans, not France. She belongs to no one else, neither China, nor the United States, nor anyone else.
That's beautiful. That is so inspiring. Doc, talk to more about what you heard from this young man's speech.
Well, that young man actually right now is not the sitting president of Senegal. It is his friend who, this man was, that was before the presidential election. That's why you heard him mention Macky. The French were preparing. And they did everything possible to disenfranchise him by locking him up in jail. They've cooked up some charges and locked him up in jail to prevent him from running. And he was generous enough to say, well, if he has been put out of the way from becoming president, his assistant, his second in command, can stand in his place. And that second in command stood and became president. And so this person that was speaking is now the prime minister. In fact, he is truly acting as president, but from behind, sitting in the seat of the prime minister in collaboration with his friend, who was second in command before the presidential election, who is now the president of France. So that's what was going on there. And it is interesting to see that these are Francophone African countries speaking excellent English. In fact, it is so interesting to notice that in Cameroon, the Francophones, Biya himself included, who rule us, even though they are able to speak some English, they seem to be ashamed of speaking in English. But these are totally French-controlled colonies, only one language, the French, and yet they are speaking very excellent English. You hear these guys speaking here. You will also find circumstances where Ibrahim Traore is speaking in very good English. So that is the mindset of a dynamic youth that is evolving and looking forward to the future. And basically, he's saying what we have all been saying. The French have kept our people in abject poverty and suffering, manipulating leadership in Africa, putting in place the people they want to use in order to continue exploiting the land. And we don't want that. It's not that we don't like the French as a people, but we don't like the actions of the French government, because it is the French government that controls the activities of the French in Africa, and in collaboration with the business entities and groups like that. So, as you hear him talking about that here, asking the French government to separate itself from their bad acts in Africa, and saying that we do not hate the French as a people, would like a better future where we respect each other, work together in each other in collaboration for the welfare of all. That's what this man is saying, and that's what we are also saying. We do not hate the French as a people, but we hate the actions of the French government in manipulating our governments in Africa and doing things to keep our people in abject poverty and suffering so that they can continue exploiting the resources of our land. That is what we do not want. That's what I can say here about that segment. Mape.
Thank you so much. You know, in his speech, he addresses the youth. He talked about the youth, the diaspora, and the elites, meaning that these three groups should be able to come together and fight for justice for the different countries, knowing that so far France has been manipulating all these nations that they're in without care for what will happen to the youth. And the diaspora, those who are in the diaspora, they see the truth. They've experienced how the modern things are done in where they live. If you live in the United States of America, you live in Europe, in Canada, any of those countries, you know how things are run. You know how the youth have a future, but you know that you can compare with what is happening in Africa. So this subset that he addressed, they have been empowered to make sure that this doesn't continue, that they can make their voices heard. And I'm glad you reemphasize what he said, that we don't really hate France. We just want to be able to collaborate so that we both benefit. You are a scientist, Doc. There's this relationship between in symbiosis where both the host and the vector, they have some mutual benefits, right? One doesn't hurt the other like a parasite will do. So I mean, in that sense, you can explain what is happening, what is expected. I talk about that briefly, what I'm trying to say.
Correct. So if you look into the animal kingdom, with a parasite is literally sitting on a host for its own personal benefit and not the benefit of the host, to feed itself and reproduce its offspring. And in the process, the host can die. So sometimes some of the parasites just make sure that the host is allowed to live a little bit so they can continue to exploit it and grow, which is what is happening in our relationship with the French. They have literally captured our people to have them under full control using the government and other infrastructures, but they just allow us to be able to suffer continually and live without totally destroying us so that they can continue to live on our people. In fact, they have turned our people to become like the slaves. But that situation is going to change. If you look on the other hand, look at animals like the buffalo and all these animals in the field. When they are there, you know that you get pests like flies on your body, ticks, and all the rest. But there are some birds that go along sitting on the backs, on the ears, on the nose, and every part of the buffalo, and they pick on those pests and all those insects and ticks that harm the host of the buffalo, for example. But they don't kill it. A buffalo is actually very happy that that birds are on them. And if birds have food, because what they need to eat is on the buffalo. That is a kind of relationship that we want to be, where you are very, very useful and profitable to somebody. You're not exploiting them, and they're very happy to relate to you.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on now. We talked about this young leader. Then we've already talked about Ibrahim Traore in the past. But there's another video that may be a little bit long. We can decide when to cut it, about Ibrahim Traore, talking also about what is happening. And all these appeals coming from these young leaders. I mean, France should I don't know why they're giving a deaf ear, but they should think twice about continuing doing business as usual. So I hope that we can see the next video right now, Ibrahim Traore, talking about how we've been exploited by France, how African countries have been exploited by France. If you can see that video now, please.
Breaking news. As the president of Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traore, has forwarded a very strong and powerful message to the president of France in a very respectful, constructive and polite manners to return every single thing that they have stolen from us for over many centuries. In fact, I am not going to bore you guys with too much talk because this video is a little bit quite longer. I am going to allow you guys to hear everything from the horse's mouth. Attention, please.
Public. For too long, you have mistaken African patience for permission. You thought our silence meant surrender. You believed our diplomacy was weakness. You misread our civility as chains, forgetting that even a lion sleeps with dignity. But I write you now, not in anger. I write to you with the calm of the ancestors, with the stillness of those who stood beneath colonial gallows, yet never bowed their spirits. I speak with the voice of empires older than your archives, from kingdoms whose gold-built cathedrals you now claim as yours. This is not a letter, it is a reckoning. You came to our lands as guests and left as thieves. You entered with Bibles in one hand and bayonets in the other, preaching salvation as you shackled our minds and plundered our minerals. You renamed our rivers, desecrated our shrines, uprooted our museums, and then dared to teach us civilization. What is civilization to a people who built Timbuktu when Paris was a swamp? What is progress to a people who mastered astronomy while your king still feared eclipses? France, this is not about the past alone. This is about your present appetite. This is about how you still drink from African wells and pretend your thirst is righteous. You speak of partnerships, yet your embassies dictate our elections. You preach free markets, yet your companies monopolize our resources. You scream about democracy, yet your soldiers guard dictators who serve your interest. And in Burkina Faso, in the heart of West Africa, we say enough. You still owe us gold artifacts, blood, and truth. You've built museums from our stolen memory, economies from our stolen labor, and pride from our stolen identity. You created narratives that depict Africa as broken, yet it is your fingerprints that stain every fracture. You owe our mothers the sons buried under your foreign wars. You owe our soil the purity you poisoned for uranium and profit. You owe our future the dignity you tried to erase with every lie published in your newspapers, every puppet installed in our palaces, and we are no longer asking politely. The storm is not coming, the storm is already here. It gathers in the minds of our youth who no longer dream in French. It whispers in the chants of our people, who all reject your currency and your control. It echoes in the silence of African leaders who finally refuse to be pawns. You have until now benefited from our division. You fed on our tribal tensions, sowed discord, and presented yourself as the only solution to the chaos you engineered. But Africa has read the manual now. We've studied your tactics. We've named your games, and we've chosen not to play. We are building a new order, one not defined by your parliaments or polished in your press. A sovereign, unbought, uncolonized order rooted in truth, dignity, and justice. This is your warning. Return what you stole. Not only the artifacts that sit behind glass, but the resources, the honor, and the independence you stripped with treaties signed at gunpoint. Return them or face a generation that no longer fears your flags or your threats. You see, this is not just Burkina Faso speaking. This is the voice of Africa, unfiltered. The voice of Mali rising, the voice of Niger awakened, the voice of a continent that has been quiet too long. You may mock our courage on your screens, you may twist our message in your editorials. But the ground beneath you is shifting, your grip is slipping, your time is ending. We do not seek vengeance, we seek restoration. But make no mistake, restoration is not a request. It is a demand backed by resolve, and we are prepared to stand, to resist, and if need be, to rebuild from ashes. This is only the beginning. Signed with fire, not fear. From Ouagadougou to the conscience of a sleeping empire, wake up or be swept away. The currency of chains. France, let us speak plainly now. You did not just take our gold. You minted it into your prosperity, then returned to sell us back our own freedom at interest. The CFA franc, that colonial relic you swore was an economic partnership. Let the world hear it today. It is not a currency, and it is Ali Sheikh. For decades, your government claimed it ensured stability. But whose stability? Was it the African farmer who could not export his harvest without your permission? Was it the mother in Abiedu whose bread cost more because the euro sneezed in Paris? Was it the young Burkinab genius who had to flee to Lyon or Marseille to find value for his mind? No, the only stability it brought was to your stock markets, to your illusion of African dependency, to your dream that our nations would never truly stand alone, because your hand would always be on our throat. Disguised as a handshake, you demanded we deposit our foreign reserves with your central bank. You taxed our sovereignty before we ever collected it. You robbed us and told us to be grateful for your management of the spoils. How dare you? You built cathedrals in Paris with the profits from Congolese rubber, Ivorian cocoa, Burkina cotton, and then had the audacity to place African masks in your museums labeled not as loot, but as artifacts generously donated. You built wealth with stolen hands and then raised those same hands as if they were clean. But we remember how your corporations operated behind puppet regimes siphoning uranium from Niger. While her people sat in darkness, we remember how your embassies played chess with our elections, installing leaders who spoke French fluently but never dared speak freedom. We remember the coups you funded, the resistance you labeled as rebels, the patriots you called threats to democracy. No more. The youth of Africa are not your colony. We are not here to beg. We are not here to bargain. We are here to reclaim, and hear me clearly, this is not a request, and this is a final notice. So return what you stole. Not just the artifacts, not just the gold, not just the money sitting in your vaults. Return the respect, the agency, the right to chart our destiny without your shadow. We will no longer ask. We will act. The CFA franc will fall, because a continent cannot rise with foreign chains around its economy. We will build our own institutions. We will trade in our own currencies. We will educate our children in our own languages. We will define ourselves not through the lens of a Paris newsroom, but through the eyes of African wisdom and truth. You can call it defiance. We call it deliverance. And do not mistake our unity for noise. What you hear rising across West Africa is not mere outrage, it is order being restored. What you hear from Mali, from Niger, from Burkina Faso is the sound of empires being broken. Without bullets, just by the truth. We did not come to threaten you with war, but understand this, if you continue to threaten our freedom with debt, dependency, and deceit, then you will indeed face a storm not of our weapons, but of our will. A storm of minds awakened. A storm of youth mobilized. A storm of nations aligned no longer on your terms, but on our own. Africa will not remain in the waiting room of history. Our hour has struck, and in this new dawn, the old currency of control is worthless. The lion has risen, and he does not negotiate with those who once held the whip. The lie of civilization. France, you once covered a civilizing mission. You arrived with the Bible in one hand and a rifle in the other. You taught us your prayers, but banned our drums. You showed us cathedrals, then destroyed our temples. You spoke of light, but moved like shadows. And when you were done baptizing the soil in our blood, you dared to say we were better off. Better off. You erased languages that carried centuries of wisdom. You outlawed names that spoke of identity and spirit. You tore families from roots, turned kings into prisoners, turned queens into housemaids. You humiliated sages, buried griots, and then wrote your own version of history, where the conqueror is always civilized and the victim always silent. But hear this now. We were never uncivilized. We were uncolonized. And there's a difference. Before you built your palaces, we built kingdoms. Before your flags flew over our lands, our ancestors flew with the stars. Timbuktu was teaching the world when your kings were still hunting in forests. We birthed mathematics while you battled superstition. We honored nature while you divided the heavens into pieces of paper and called it ownership. So no, Franze, you did not bring us civilization. You brought us interruption. To see, your greatest success was not just in stealing land. It was in stealing the mirror. You made us see ourselves through your gaze, ashamed of our skin, our tongues, our gods, our rhythm. You didn't just rob gold, you robbed memory. You didn't just take cotton, you took confidence. You didn't just loot minerals, you looted meaning. But now the mirror has shattered. And what stands before you is not the Africa of yesterday. Not the Africa that apologizes for wanting dignity. Not the Africa that boasts when it builds. Nor the Africa that waits for handouts dressed as help. We are not ashamed of what we were before you came. We are not confused about what you did. And we are not afraid to say it now. You lied. You lied to our fathers. You lied to the world. And you're still lying every time your media calls our resistance instability. Every time your officials call our independence dangerous. Every time your think tanks publish fear-mongering analyses about military regimes in West Africa. What's truly dangerous is truth. Because truth cuts deeper than bayonets. And the truth is this. We do not need your version of civilization. We do not need your endorsement to be free. We do not need your textbooks to define who we are. We will raise our children on the shoulders of our ancestors, not in the shadows of colonizers.
Alright, honestly, you see this someone called Captain Ibrahim Traore from...
All right. That video is packed with a lot of information. And I was listening and I was just thinking, I thought to myself, with the fact that civilization really started in Africa, how did we get ourselves in the place where the white man had to take over? You know, because we're so trusting. I mean, I asked that question and I answered it myself. I mean, Doc, I'm veering towards a different topic. But how do we get ourselves where we are now, where they came and took over? You know, just say something briefly.
Well, this young man is only about 36 years old. I have to emphasize that because you know how old you are. I know how old
Yeah.
I am. These people can be our children. And you see how spectacularly they are working. And basically, he's speaking the truth over there. Again, he is from a fully French speaking colony, and he's speaking in English. I mean, that is wonderful and inspiring.
You know, Doc,
Even-
I don't know for a fact that I may be wrong. So sometimes with artificial with AI, sometimes they're able to translate and make it as if he's one speaking. So that I have to verify because I've
Correct.
spoken to a couple of people and they said it's possible that he's not the one speaking and they may be AI.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just assume that he's the one speaking. Go ahead.
Correct. But even if that were the case, before AI, they were doing interpretation when people were speaking, say, in the United Nations, put things in their ears and the interpreter is talking to you. So whatever the case is translated. Even Nelson Mandela had to learn the language of his oppressors in order to talk with them. You see, in a language that they do understand. And we need to speak in a language that they understand. But it's inspiring to see these young, dynamic people coming up with wonderful ideas that nobody would have imagined how they got it. With the so-called modern education and the books that we have, he was able to dig that right far back into history. But when we want to talk about how they came to this, the thing is this: we were in a very rich continent. We had everything we had. Our people were thriving and living well, and people have always come and taken advantage of us. The Muslims came from the north, carried some of us away as slaves and abused them. These people in Europe, they were living in suffering. Remember, Europe is cold in winter. And here in North America, it can be very, very hot in summer. And Africa is comfortable most of the time. So they had to develop things like ship, these ships that you travel with in the ocean. And they did a lot of things that when they came to us, they looked more modern. Because we saw these persons coming with a ship and landing at our shores and coming out of it and carrying like a gun and things like that. So we thought that they were more civilized. They were more informed of that which is better. We trusted them, but not realizing that they don't have good intentions. Yeah, but it's because of the hardship, the hard living conditions in the colonies where they come from, the territories where they came from, that they were able to develop things that impressed us. That's how they came. Of course, they wrote books and then they wrote the books to us. Our people were narrating stories and passing them in a language as Ibrahim Traore was talking. I remember when we were growing, we used to sit around the fireplace and share stories, Arabian Night entertainment, and we would narrate stories. But we didn't have those in books. Some few tribes among us have written books, like say in Fumban, they have a written language. But most of us, we don't have it. It's just narrative. But these guys had written books like the Bible. So they brought a book with information that you can read, which we didn't have. That's how they conquered us, because they seemed to be more developed and, or knew something better than we knew. And so we trusted them and followed them. And our kings, our leaders listened to them, and they were bought off with things like a mirror, alcohol, and gas. Can you imagine what they used to buy off the entire resources of the land? They gave them a mirror to see your face in the mirror, which we didn't have, so they were impressed.
That was magic.
They give you alcohol that makes you drunk. It's stronger than our palm wine where I come from, And then they give you cigarettes or cigars to smoke. You know how people used to smoke the pipe. So they gave you a cigar that was even more stronger. And so they were just intoxicating their minds and deceived and carried away the land. So that's how they did that. But things are changing for the better.
Yes, things are changing.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, when we're in primary school, there used to be this song that you may have heard of it. I don't know all the lyrics, but I know the beginning. It goes somewhere like this: We were one, and the white man came with his big sense and divided Cameroon. They came in numbers, the Portuguese, the British, the English, and the French, something like that. That song, I'll have to
Exactly.
try and remember that song. So that's exactly what happened. We were one, and they came with their big sense and they divided Cameroon. And they did the same thing for Africa. Moving along, let's go now to Ambazonia, to southern Cameroon, to La République du Cameroon, and talk about certain things that are happening there. The old colonial puppets, they're holding back progress of our people, of our youth, and these two young dynamic leaders have really shed light of what is expected of France and for the people, for the youth to take charge, really. So let's examine the case of Cameroon, the betrayal of our people. The talk about how our people have been betrayed, and there's a video out there showing how some guy. Well, you will explain it much because you've seen the video. How they are very wasteful of our basically money that they've squandered from us and using for themselves. So talk about the case of Southern Cameroon, Doug, before we look at that video.
Yes.
Or if you want
In
to see the
fact,
video, go ahead.
correct. We can talk. Those are fanatics of the system that are feeding fat. It's almost like a jigger in your toe that is getting fat from drinking your blood. And the system is rotten to the core and exploiting the land and the people and keeping them in abject poverty and suffering. And those that are collaborating with them are benefiting from the spoils and eating the crumbs. Literally, those are people eating the crumbs and gave up their minds and they wouldn't think. But basically, we still have the relics of the colonial system that the French imposed on Cameroon. We have talked about it here on different programs that when the United Nations instructed the powers that were ruling territories of the UN, the one that were captured from Germany to prepare them towards independence, they connived, and the French did not want to go, and so they signed a secret pact with Ahidjo, the first president of Cameroon, to keep them under full control of everything, including the economy. And Cameroon has only known two presidents. After Ahidjo, they brought this Beya. When Ahidjo came to power in Cameroon, this Beya was studying in France. And so they prepared him there. And when people were fighting for independence in Cameroon, he said he would prefer to work with the French Secret Service. So he's a French Secret Service agent. And that's what he has been all his life since, from his youth. And they have been using him not only in exploiting our resources, but use them to steal the little that is left and carry it back to Europe. And so basically, he has confiscated all the resources in Amazonia, like the oil and many other resources that generate wealth, like CDC and others, and even produce like gold. And he considers himself as owner of all of those things. And he's stashed away the money in Europe to the point where he owns the richest private hospital in Paris. He owns hospitals in Baden-Baden in Germany. It's actually said in some quarters that he owns a hotel Intercontinental where you see him in Switzerland. Besides a lot of money that he's cashed away, which are in billions. It's estimated that the oil that has been exploited in Amazonia could at this point be over $600 billion. Most of that money he's kept for himself. But now he has kept all of that money to himself and is giving a very small segment of it to his fanatics. Those who will worship and adore him and keep him in power so that they will continue. And so those people who think they have privilege by being with him, they eat these crumbs. And this video exemplifies one of them. And you see somebody here who is a CBDM stooge in a CBDM rally who is being assigned a position, and people are bathing him in very costly alcohol, wine, and pouring it on him, and he is rejoicing. He's accomplished something unique. Imagine you are dressed up in very nice clothing, and all of that is being soiled with alcohol. See how they are pouring it on him, and he's soaking it all in. like he's doing wonders and rejoicing. And those stooges all around him, they are rejoicing, thinking that they are doing something good. While they are doing that, outside of that same infrastructure, the streets are dilapidated, the youths are suffering, and people are dying. The troops that are trying to protect their power are going around extorting money from simpletons on the streets and killing others. That is what is happening in that puppet regime in Yaoundé. That is the remnant of what the French have left with us. And the French were doing the same thing in other countries like Ivory Coast and all the other African countries. And the youth of those countries have woken and said, no, we cannot put up with this. And this nonsense happening in La République du Cameroon also will have to go. There's no future for them. And if you continue in this, the generation that is behind, they continue getting worse. So you realize that our people have suffered so much. They were living off of their parents. Then after their parents died, they were selling off what the parents owned to try and survive and go abroad. And now many of them don't have any hope for the future for those who are not able to get out of the land, while these guys squander the remnants of the few things that Biya will allow them to have. Remember, Biya alone owns billions of dollars abroad, invested in private properties and money. His family, his little daughter, has over $7 billion. We don't want to talk about what his wife owns and what the sons and other children have and what he himself owns. But what this guy is being bathed in is just crumbs. These are just crumbs. And so anybody who is collaborating with that regime, whether you think they gave you an envelope, that is but a crumb to buy your conscience, so that you stop thinking and stop using your mind and stop living right and allow them to continue in perpetuity the mischief that the French have been doing to us, using Biya as a puppet. It's ridiculous. It's very disgraceful and shameful. You can see how they continue. And they go around bribing the youth with bread and sardine. These same youths that are suffering on the streets, who don't have food, some of them have even graduated from university with degrees, like master's degrees or PhDs, and have no jobs. And they don't know where to go. They are not able to come abroad for a better life. They come and give them bread and sardine so that they will allow them to continue doing what they are doing by claiming that they voted for them. It's a sad situation. See how they're wasting. This is very costly drinks. Some of them were proud that some of the bottles cost over $10,000. I say dollars, I did not say francs. Some of those bottles, some of them were priding themselves that they were able to purchase wine from Europe, France in particular, of that caliber. And that's what is being wasted on this individual.
Right.
You can imagine that is wasted there. Just that money alone could have been used to help in a village to construct structures, provide water, provide schools, better roads, living conditions, all the necessary things that are necessary in the hospitals for the children, even to receive basic treatments and vaccination. That is all squandered on this person, wasted. Imagine all his dressing is already soaked in the wine. Can you see? It's very disgraceful. It's very unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate indeed. Doug, the irony is that this person that they are worshipping, they have regalia showing Biya, he really, at this point in his life, doesn't even know what is going on. When you see him on television, he's getting directed by people to go here, go there. He has all this wealth. When he dies, what becomes of all this wealth that is in France? Who controls it? Who benefits from all this? Is it not France?
Correct. Of course, that is what the Western nations, it's not just France. Switzerland is the land where they have designed laws to protect people embezzling money and stashing it away in Switzerland so nobody can tell. So many dictators hide their money in Switzerland and all across Europe, even reaching out here to the United States of America. They know that money that has been embezzled and stashed away in their economies, they run the economy. They help to run the economy, provide jobs for their people, provide opportunities for businesses to borrow that money and run businesses. Imagine if that money was in Cameroon. That is our money, by the way. If that money was in Cameroon, our young people who are suffering on the streets would have been able to take some of that money, which rightfully belongs to them, to do business. Would have had much better developed roads, much better infrastructures. and people would create jobs. You know, it would be easy for you to go to the bank and say, I have this business idea. I want to start this, whatever it is. And they give you a large sum of money as a loan to go do your business. But instead, that money is now running the economies in Europe, in France, in Switzerland, in Germany, all across Western Europe. And some of them have been reaching even to the east, like to China and other places and offshore places where they hide the money. So they had literally stolen away all the resources of the land, all the things that belong to the children, and given it to foreigners. That's what has happened there.
What a waste! What a waste! So, what advice can you give to collaborators of the French puppet regime of Yaoundé? I mean, we're here
They,
on
they,
on Horizon, but what advice can you
yeah,
give them?
basically, they are going to lose. They are following a lost cause. They say that a fly follows a corpse to the grave to die itself. You know, so I talked about the birds that are on the buffalo picking the ticks and the flies from it. As long as the lions put the birds down, the lions don't care about the birds. You know, they want to eat the buffalo, and then the birds will run away and fly off. All these collaborators, they're just trying to feed themselves and benefit from the little crumbs. Once the buffalo is down, once Biya and his regime are down and finished, those people will change around like a chameleon you would not believe. They will start telling you that, oh, they were deceived, or you know, they had to do it to survive and things like that, and that they were not doing it in good conscience. So my advice to them is that, listen, no condition is permanent, number one, and it's been demonstrated in history. We've had various dictators all through our time, even recent times, like Mobutu in Zaire, and you can pick the Abachas in Nigeria. There are so many other examples you can. So you can go back through history to the Mobutu, to the Nebuchadnezzars and the Caesars and the pharaohs. They are no longer there today. They are gone. And so Bia will go, whether he likes it or he doesn't like it. It's his age, and he's 92, going 93. He's naturally going to die, and they may try to preserve what they think they have taken control of, but it's not going to stand. Just like Mobutu would have tried to preserve, and it didn't stand. Even the man of Uganda before that, Idi Amin, would have tried to do the same. All of them would try to keep themselves in perpetuity in power, but it will never succeed. So they too will not. So my recommendation to them is that, listen, you better come to your senses sooner than later. The youth, who constitute over 90% of the population, the future belongs to them. And that youth will bring change in Cameroon and Amazonia, and Bia will be swept into the dustbin of history. So don't waste your time with the crumbs. You know, it's like they have taken away the chicken, and then taken the scissors to trim the nails of the chicken. And these collaborators are living off of the tripped nails of the chicken, while Bia and his cronies enjoy the full chicken and the gizzard. So those guys that are eating the nails, don't think that you are doing anything. They deceive you with little envelopes and fool you. Like the chiefs. You saw those chiefs that were
Yes.
forced by the so-called governor to march like sheep. You know, they think that they're collaborating with Bia, but they're betraying their future, betraying their cause, betraying their people. I'll advise them, be wise, and come to your senses and know that this man is finished. Don't wait for him to die before you turn around. Turn around.
Okay, so it's time to give some sort of hope for Southern Cameroonians, for Ambazonians. Um, so, what are the prospects that because we know what Southern Cameroons used to be like.
Mhm.
We know what we will be like in future, and there's a video that I would like us to see after you make some comments about
Mhm.
what we foresee Southern Cameroons Ambazonia will look like. This is just to give our people hope for the future.
Mhm.
But tell us what, give us some hopeful message in terms of
Correct.
prospects for
The,
what the country
the
will be.
hopeful the hopeful message for us is that we have a very young and dynamic youth. They constitute the majority of the population. There are more than 90%. You cannot kill all of these youth, and that youth will bring the change. You know, people realize how much they're suffering, And so when they sit down and really unpack the true reason why they're suffering, what they can do about it, they will come up with good solutions. That's what has happened revolutionary worldwide. Even the United States, when it was being founded, as they were suffering under Britain, they met as revolutionaries and came up with the Constitution of the United States and came up with the form of government of the United States. All across Africa, you've heard about sovereign national conferences where people finally come together and say, hey, let's address the root cause of all what we're suffering under and see how we can solve it. The people will come together and come up with solutions to their problem. When this boba tree has been uprooted and thrown out. And so, yes, we used to be what we have always mentioned, the fact that Southern Cameroon practiced the first democracy in all sub-Saharan Africa from 1954 to 1960 without war, without, hatred and somebody killing somebody, and had peaceful transfer of powers. And we've talked about so many other wonderful things that we used to do. The world has improved and moved forward. Now we have artificial intelligence. So the future looks bright because we will build on that good past we had and do even much better than we have done in the past for our future. We will develop wonderfully when the people will sit down together and talk and plan how the society should be regulated and how things should move forward. And that is coming. It's not something that anybody can manipulate and stop. War is not forever. War eventually comes to an end. So this BS war on Amazonians, where they say, let's kill them, and we don't care about the number of people who have been killed, it will come to an end, and they will not see them again.
Okay, you know what? I was going to have us watch that video, but we're running out of time because we have two topics for today. We have to talk about mental health. I didn't want to let this month go without us discussing this a little bit. The month of May is a mental health awareness month. Although the month is coming to an end, I rather us mention something about this topic because it's very important. Because mental health really affects every single person on earth. No one is free of as long as you're alive, you have physical health issues and you have mental health issues. So, Doc, let me ask you a few questions briefly, and then I'll introduce a short video to just highlight some of the things that you're going to mention, and then you will discuss a few more things, and then we'll conclude. So, regarding mental health, what is good mental health? What is mental health? Let's start with what is mental health, and then
Okay.
briefly, and then yeah.
So generally, first about health, which is general, everybody knows that health refers to a state of a complete physical, that's bodily, the body that we see and touch, mental, your thinking, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease that we may see. And the mental is the one that deals specifically with mental health. And mental health is dealing with the way we feel and how we act and think, not very much like touching the muscles and other body parts, but how I feel deep inside me, how I think and act it out socially. And so you can be healthy in that area, in that regard, by being balanced. And everybody, when they look at you, they're satisfied, they're happy, they think that you're a good person. You have control of your life and circumstances. And if things are wrong, your body can be very healthy. And people will know that something is wrong with your thinking. Something is wrong with your behavior, the way you interact with people, something is wrong with it. And so mental health deals with not just that, but even social interactions, being socially balanced. The fact that depending on every stage of your life, from children through old age, you are well knit into your social fabric in the community where you live. Like as children, we used to play, run around with our friends, and then come back home. Later on, as you grow into a mature young person, you want to get married. So you want to be married at that age. And then as you keep on growing as a young adult, you have children, and very soon the children grow up and leave the home, and you age and become an older person. But that at every stage of your life, as a child, young person, and an older person, you look well knit into your community where you're satisfied, your thinking process and your social interactions, they show that you are a balanced person. That is all in relation also with mental health.
Yeah, this topic is very important, especially for us Southern Cameroonians, Amazonians, with what has transpired in our territory for the past 7, 8 years. People have been touched in one way or the other. Let's see this very short clip that just generalizes what people need to know, the basics of mental health. After that, I'm going to ask you some specific questions, and then we'll conclude the program after another video.
Yeah, dude, she's crazy.
I don't know about that. That's kind of stigmatizing to say.
Huh? What's a stigma?
I heard the word stigma, but also never knew what it was until recently. Mental health in my family was never talked about much because it was seen as a weakness. We were taught to never share our business with others because nobody should see or hear you struggle. You always think that if something is going on with your mind, that society is going to label you. And that's a stigma. All of this prevents us from accepting our struggles and getting help. But I think that getting help means you're strong. Like, we are all so critical of ourselves. It takes everybody time to feel like they want to open up, but you shouldn't judge yourself or your friends and family.
I mean, it's true. Anyone can have mental health challenges, no matter if you're male or female or non-binary or black, white, Latinx, or your sexuality, religious beliefs, age, or how much money you have. Anyone can struggle. Even I've struggled.
Yeah, and stigma is often what stops you from getting help. Because, you might think that you'll be treated differently or face discrimination if you admit that you're struggling. But, don't be too hard on yourself. Nobody is weak for struggling.
It's hard because I got stereotypes from my family traditions, intergenerational trauma, my religion, social media, just to name a few. It's like what you said. I feel like it turned into shame or like a self-stigma. I started to think negatively about myself for struggling with mental health when I did. After I came to terms with the fact that I wasn't doing well, that I was worried about myself, I reached out for support. And I know it's not the same for everyone, but my friends supported me. They offered to go to group sessions with me or gave me a ride and told me that it didn't change how they thought of me. I didn't expect them to react that way because we don't have these type of conversations, but I'm glad I said something. I'm still having conversations with my family. Maybe they'll come around when they know more. We can get rid of stigma by taking care of ourselves and encouraging each other to do the same.
I think mental and physical wellness are similar, but mental pain isn't always visible. If someone has the flu or a broken bone, we don't judge or blame them. We encourage them to take care of themselves. It should be the same for mental health.
100%.
But yeah, stigma is everywhere. It's on the media and on TV, but also in the language we use, like you calling that girl crazy or someone saying, "You'll get over it." That stuff can affect people negatively. It can cause bullying, and it can make someone believe that they'll never recover or that they're a worse person somehow, which is just not true. Getting help for your mental health doesn't define who you are or change your ability to be independent. It means that you're able to find solutions in healing.
You're right. I guess what I meant to say is that she doesn't seem like herself, that something is different, and I am concerned.
Yeah, that sounds better. The words we use matter. They can affect if someone feels comfortable talking about their challenges. I'd say that if someone reaches out to you for support, make sure they know that you're there for them and that this doesn't change how you think of them. When people understand what mental health is, that mental health doesn't change who you are as a person, then stigmas won't have such an impact in our community. Anyways, I'm glad we had this conversation. I'm always here to talk.
Thank you so much. Before I ask you some specific questions, let me just read this about war and mental health. War significantly impacts mental health, affecting not only those directly involved in combat, but also civilians and even those who observe war from afar. Common mental health issues include PTSD, anxiety, and depression. The World Health Organization estimates that in war or conflict situations, 1 in 5 individuals will experience depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia. The clip that we showed just before we came back now is really a general clip that could apply to anybody in any normal circumstances or circumstance. But now we're talking about war in addition to just living your life normally. So in that light, is there truly a human being without any mental health challenges?
Actually, each one of us throughout our lifespan will have mental health issues. We may not directly address it and call it that, but we know that things happen. For example, even if you come from a very wealthy family, you leave, you may discover that maybe your father is always gone and you're missing your dad or your mom or some relative. That already causes a deficiency, even though you have a lot of money. You know, money is not like the solution to all problems. And then also, as we live and grow and mature and go through the different stages of life, you know, we have to take tests, for example, or we fall ill and we get afraid. We become afraid of maybe we're going to die from this. So you have those. I'm talking about a regular healthy person who does not have a distinctive mental health illness like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and things like that, or narcissistic behavior. Just a regular human being. You go through different phases, just preparing to take your exams. You get worried that maybe you didn't read enough, or you don't master the subject enough, and you may fail the test. And you get worried shortly before the exam, or you're anxious when the results are being released, or you get very depressed because you failed, and things like that. That happens to each one of us, and we all go through it. So let nobody deceive you that they are fine, everything is going well. No, everything is not going well all the time for anybody. Everybody has something to deal with at some point in their lives.
Okay, so then talk to us about the situation that we are facing in Southern Amazonia, because every day we hear about people being killed. People walk on the street and they see dead body, things that was not really things that were not happening in the past. You know about kidnapping for ransom, rape, all these atrocities that have really come into our land. Police all over the place harassing people. So our people are really in tense situation that will affect their mental health. Talk about specifics as related to a war situation.
So let's put together, first of all, what is ideal. Ideal is to be emotionally, psychologically, and socially balanced in your connection. This will affects the way we think and feel and act, and influences our ability to cope with life stressors, like I talked, exams, and form healthy relationships throughout time, like before you get married and the new family, and to contribute to your community in a meaningful way. So if you look at the situation in the former British Southern Cameroon, the war that La Republique has waged against our people has done a lot of damage. It's killed families, separated families, and then put them under a lot of distress, in fact, impoverished their society, our community. Besides the government, the governors and the DOs and the military, extorting money from the people, which impoverishes them, making them to have less of what they owned before, but also separated them. Where children are growing and don't know where a parent is or where the other is, or you watch the other being killed. Grandmothers that would have been watched over and taken care of by their children are now fending for themselves in old age. Naturally, if parents raise children, take care of them, and later on when the parents age and are becoming vulnerable, the children take care of the parents. But that has been disrupted. And so you have old parents suffering and struggling and not knowing what will happen, and even know where their children are, what will happen to them. And then you also have the trauma of watching people being shot and killed and being tortured and maltreated. We became so numb to death that we were watching the heads of people chopped off and put at the side of the road on a stick, on a pole. Can you imagine? When we watch dead people maltreated by the army, tortured, burnt with acid, like in Bali. So the people have watched all of those things. It becomes so much into their, it goes into their emotions and conscience. They try to suppress it and make like they didn't see it. But eventually it will act out again in the future. They will get to a point where they will say, no, I don't want to have seen this. This is not normal. It's not necessary. And then you find them acting out emotionally. That is what is called PTSD. So you find troops that fought in the war, shot and killed people, but when they come back home and they're sleeping in their beds, they start envisioning the war scene again and find themselves in the scene of war where they were killing people and start acting, jumping out of the bed, saying things out of order and threatening their family members. That is all in relation to PTSD. Our people are going to experience this in different variation because of what the Republic has done to us. They have disrupted the normal order of our lives. Remember what we were. We had an orderly society. Parents were doing great, raising their kids. Children were growing, going to schools. We had so many thriving schools at all levels, private, mission, government schools, all across Amazonia. In fact, people used to come from other French-speaking African countries to learn in Amazonian schools so they would learn English to be able to come to the United States of America. The La République du Cameroon has disrupted that. And if you go to our communities, those schools, the buildings are now dilapidated and bush is growing all around it. The schools are no longer being frequented. And what did they do? They went and built similar schools in Bafoussam and Douala and neighboring towns in La République and lured our people, that those who escaped and ran away from the war, to go back there and send their children there. So they robbed us of what we were and what we had. And they have literally set us a lot back, physically, emotionally, in all different ways. And eventually, our people will take a lot of time before they come through this. It's not something that's just going to go like that. Just see that one speech is not going to be enough to solve this problem.
Yeah. Even our young ASA, the Ambazonia State Army that are defending homeland, those are kids that just because of war, they found themselves in this situation and without any coping mechanism. They are just probably behaving like robots, and one day they will have to pay for it by, just
some of them
not
have had
themselves anymore.
some of them have had to start fighting La République du Cameroon as untrained
Right.
forces. They were not trained as military. They had to pick stones, pick sticks, and try to fight against La Republic. And in order to fortify themselves, they started using substances, what we used to call banga. And then even La Republic military came, they were using the same substances that La Republic gave them to be bold, to go and kill our people. They came and were giving it to our people to pollute and spoil them. So in Old Town Bamenda, find people saying that La Republic gave them substances not only to use, but also to sell and pollute the young people so that they shouldn't think. And so the young people are no longer normal, just regular children born, growing up and enjoying their youthful age and becoming mature adults in different levels of ability. But they have been corrupted and polluted by substances brought in by La République du Cameroon.
La Republic. All right.
we're
So,
going to be
what
having
kind?
Yes.
Just for people's knowledge, because during time of war, some of our people may not even have access to some of the mental health experts. But briefly tell us some mental health experts that exist and what people need to be aware of.
Correct. There are different kinds of mental health experts. In a well-functioning society, say like here in the US and Western Europe and others, you have people who have gone to school, like universities, and trained to treat people with mental health challenges or illnesses. You have psychiatrists for physicians. Among physicians, you have psychiatrists. Those are doctors that are trained to treat mental health illness. They don't listen to your lungs. They don't touch your body parts. They just talk to you, interact with you, and are able to diagnose what mental illness you have, and they can write medications that should help you with this. Now, then you have psychologists. Those are people who are very well trained. They have PhD degrees or different levels, some basic bachelor's degree, then a master's degree and a PhD degree, and different levels of further training to be counselors who are able to sit down and talk to people and advise them and guide them through life. So, for example, you may have a family that is disruptive. They are not functioning great. Maybe somebody doesn't speak, or somebody, they keep fighting and they don't know how to solve the problem. They go to a psychologist and they will be able to speak with each individual child and address the issues and help them cope with this, and then also bring back the family as a group and work with them so that it becomes a functional, dynamic family that is now able to do better. That's just an example. But these psychologists do not write medications, they just listen to people. And then you also have group therapy. Say you will hear about Alcoholic Anonymous, where people who are addicted to alcohol, they don't know how to come off of it. But when they meet as a group of people who want to come out of alcohol, they can support each other. Or you have grief, like widows, people who recently lost important people in their life and they're grieving through it. They were able to come together and address their issues and talk through it, and you have less pain and know how to cope with it and move on with life. So you have psychologists, you have psychiatrists, you also have social workers who will be able to look at people whose social network has been disrupted and advise them and guide them through resources in the community. For us here in the US, for example, we have, the family structure is not like in Africa. So as people age, the children grow up and leave, and then you have two parents living together who are old, in their 80s and 90s, and maybe one of them may die or become disabled through illness, like you fall and break your hips, you can't work, and you can't function in your home, you can't, do your laundry, cook for yourself or clean. And these social workers will be able to help you find a facility and infrastructure where you can be better taken care of, like a nursing home, a long-term care facility. Some people with mental illness, they go to a place that the staff there are trained to handle people with cognitive deficits like dementia. Not everybody knows how to deal with that. So if you meet somebody who is not able to think anymore normally, they've forgotten who they are. Some of them even forget their family members, that this is a family member, not only their names, but they cannot recognize them, and they become violent and beat people up. So I've seen cases where those family members get angry with the victim, the patient, thinking that they are deliberately not knowing who they are, but that's not true. These are patients, these are victims. So you have staff in those memory care centers who know how to handle them and how to help them live better the last few years that they have. So social workers can help with this. They can also help with finding resources, like find money to pay for the care that you need. You find people get to the point where they don't even know where their money is and how to access it and how to use it. That means they're wealthy. They have the money. It's in the bank, but they don't remember where it is. They don't know where the banking book is. They don't know how much money is there. They don't know how to get it. And so this healthcare and social workers can guide you and help you through the process. In fact, we have to certify them as not being able to think and process information anymore, to be able to empower somebody else that hopefully they had designated before in their life, so that they can access and take their money from the bank and use it for their welfare. So there are different levels, multiple, some of them that I've not even mentioned.
Yes, thank you so much, Doc. We're going to be ending the program soon. I was trying to look for circumstances where those in our war-torn areas could be able to help one another, because they may not even have access to doctors. They may not even know that they are sick. Sometimes with this mental health issue, it's a family member may realize what is going on, or a friend, and the person who is really affected may not realize that something is wrong with them. So you need great communities watching for one another. So there's something that I came across saying that the 5 C's, that's the letter C, of mental health, the framework of promoting well-being, and this is something for people to think about, those watching, and it applies to anybody really. First C is connection. Connection, then there's compassion, coping, community, and care. So if you put all these 3 together, you help build a system where people can be more resilient when faced with mental issues. But for our own society that is war-torn, those who are affected with deaths in the family, those who have seen people that have been brutalized, those who have been raped. What advice can you give them if they don't really have access to seeing a psychiatrist or a psychologist?
Yes, so I would advise them, first of all, to anticipate, to not be surprised by seeing people with these challenges and these problems. Don't think that something is wrong with those people. Rather, look at them as victims. It's just like somebody has malaria. You don't blame the person for having malaria. You try to find a way to get them have treatment to be well again. So when you see people with these mental challenges and inappropriate way of acting, feel sorry for them and find ways to help each other out. In fact, we had it with us when our societies were intact. We may not have given the white man's names to the professionals. Like the psychiatrist, the psychologist, and the social worker. Those are names that you learn in Western institutions. But in our societies back then, in the village, we had them. We knew that there was like aunts within the family who are very good to resolve conflicts between marriages among family members. So you don't go to your mother or your father to solve a conflict you have with your husband, because they will become emotional for their child and may support you. But an aunt, a neutral aunt, for example, a neutral good uncle who is well-minded, will be able to listen to both sides and give good advice and guide you through the process. I know that our people used to make concoctions, different traditional leaves that they did. Those have to be examined medically to see what is the active ingredient, how it can be extracted. That's how the white man came to us and took our medicines and made them tablets that we sell today. But whatever the case, we use those as medicines, and we use those skills to help solve problems within our society. This society has been disrupted. The people have been shot at, killed, separated, and now we are just basically picking the pieces and trying to put them back together. So let us anticipate these changes and do the best we can to help each other. Don't be surprised by people acting strange or differently or badly. Let us just find ways to help each other solve the problems as we move forward. And with time, as the society stabilizes, things will get much better and more stable, back to normal again.
One thing, I'm as a pharmacist, I realized that most of the medications we dispense to our population, our patients, mental health drugs. A lot of medications are for mental health problems, unlike antibiotics and pain medications. You have this class of mental health drugs for anxiety, for depression, for the more severe cases of schizophrenia, bipolar diseases. We don't really see this case in Africa that much. Let me just specify in Cameroon, where you have a lot of people treated for these ailments. And that's where the issue of taboo comes. And with the very first video, we're talking about stigma. People are afraid to talk about it. I think it's come to a point where we should encourage people to talk about it, go to safe areas with family members, with churches and social networks, and discuss these issues, because the full health, like the doc mentioned, your full health, the picture of full health encompasses both mental health and physical health. You could be physically strong, but your mental health is a problem. Then you're sick, you're ill. So, Dot, as we conclude this program, what is your final message to Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, especially those in the war-torn areas, and of course refugees and IDPs that may be exploited a lot based on where they find themselves? What is your final message for them in terms of taking?
We feel sorry for what they are going through. We feel sad and touched by the hardship that our people are going through unnecessarily. This did not have to be, but now it's happened. And so let us try to pick up the pieces and see what we can make out of it. Like, take refugees who ran away from Akwaya or Manfe to Nigeria, to a different country, which is not their country. They were trying to run away from the bullets of the military, and they found themselves somewhere else where the land does not belong to them. Different people who don't speak the language, and they're struggling to survive over there, living from hand to mouth what has been given to them. We feel very sorry for that, and we are advising that we should be each other's keeper as much as possible. Let us be sympathetic to each other, not only a disabled person who has no leg, but also those who have behavioral characteristics of their behavior that looks abnormal. Some of it can be acting out these emotional problems, this PTSD. You can find a young woman who is forced to become a prostitute, for example, and is abused by some men in the war zone, and they get pregnant as a result, and then have children to feed without a husband. And all of that can cause them maybe to steal something, take something from somebody who does that they did not earn or buy with their own money, because they don't have the money. They need food, so they just went and stole it from somebody. If you look at the theft, you'll be angry and you can cut the hand of that person who did that. But if you feel sorry for them, looking at the circumstances, we try to understand, not saying that we should just let it be, but let us be understanding and see how we can help each other through this. We are all going through it together. Some of us in the diaspora were forced to come here, and many of us are missing our home country. That's why you heard those young men talking, that the youth, the diaspora, and what he called the elites are the three pillars that will bring salvation to the society. The diaspora will bring their ingenuity and money from abroad to help. The young people who are strong and dynamic, the future belongs to them. They will bring their ingenuity. And then the elites are those, people who are well educated, well trained, have resources, have established businesses. They were able to open up society by creating opportunities for people, creating jobs and things like that. Not the kinds of elites that Yaoundé imposes, that the government creates, fabricates. Where we mean people who, out of ingenuity by themselves, came up with an idea to do something that served the community well. For example, we notice that wood in big cities like Bamenda is getting less and less. Then people are using charcoal, wood that is burned in villages and sold in the towns to cook with. And then gas. So once in a while, the government keeps increasing the prices, and gas may not be available. So what is the population going to do? An ingenious idea is the sun is always there. Now you can use solar stoves, solar ovens, capture the energy of the sun, convert it, and cook with it. So you can find a mother sitting by the side of the road, roasting corn and plum and plantain, and the energy that she's using is the sun that she captures through a solar thing and cooks it by the side of the road, and at the end she folds it and carries it back home. That is an ingenious idea, and somebody can actualize it and introduce it to our society, and it will be available for everybody, and we don't have to worry about not having firewood or not having enough gas and things like that. And that is coming. But if you want to do it now, guess what Yaoundé does? They tax you out of it, they trick you out of it, and even if you try to bring it from the country that are producing, like China, in Yaoundé, they extort money from you, and then you don't have it, but it's there. But we need a free society where people can bring such ideas. Those are the kinds of areas we're talking about. And you can not only import it, say, from China, but we start producing it in Cameroon itself. That means you produce it in your local village, in Bamenda itself, where you produce those solar generating equipment, things that you can use to capture the sun's energy and cook with it and use it. Not only to produce electricity to run the refrigerators in the house or for you to be able to watch a television, but literally cook with it. So those are the kinds of areas we're talking about. Just one idea. One person can have that and actualize it. And there are many other ideas. Somebody for shoes, somebody for clothes, and somebody for who knows what. Exactly. That's what we're talking about.
Well, thank you so much, Doc, for being my guest, my permanent guest on the Horizon. As we end this month of May, and we ended the show with talking about mental health. So I understand that certain things that we do for physical health is also good for mental health, like exercising, because that somehow may reduce stress, and sleeping well if you're able to. So those are some things that may not need medication that our people can be encouraged to do to improve their mental health. Doc, just take a minute to say one final word, and then we're going to end the program with another video that will show as the program concludes. But after you say something, I'm going to say my final closing remarks, and then we'll show the last video as the program ends with the last video.
The future of Ambazonia is wonderful and is great. I know the people of La République du Cameroon that worship beer don't want to hear the word Ambazonia. Whatever you mention or call it, we are talking about the children of the former British Southern Cameroon, the so-called English-speaking provinces of the Northwest and the Southwest, which is also called Ambazonia. We know who they are. These are the people we're talking about. Their future is great. Things are going to get better. They will emerge and do spectacularly well in the world. And so that is the hope I want to give our people. Don't give up. Don't be deceived by these people you are seeing today, by these troops, these French extortionists you see on the road with guns, extorting money from people, killing people, raping children and women, and other things like that. They will be gone. You will see it with your very eyes as God grants you the grace to live. The future is better for us. That's what I was saying.
Amen to that. Thank you so much for being on the horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman. Fellow viewers, listeners, thank you for watching our program today. We talked about the young, dynamic leaders that are coming up in Africa, and we hopeful that someday Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia will experience these great leaders. We are going to be ending this program today. We hope that you'll continue watching it. As I end the program, there's going to be a clip on mental health. I'm going to get off the air, but please watch the clip on mental health to get the final information that we want to share with you. Once again, thanks for being on the horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman, and we hope to see you next Friday. Thank you so much.
Hey, what's up? I'm Alex. I want to talk about mental health, which we're starting to discuss more in our communities. It's our emotional well-being and impacts our everyday life, how we feel, how we interact with others, even how we think and view things. Our general wellness is connected, so your mental health can influence physical health. Mental health is how you handle experiences in your life, how you cope with everything and take care of your mind and your emotions. Just like you can have physical challenges, you can have mental health challenges, and you need to get help if you're struggling with either. You can't heal a broken foot on your own. You feel me? So you shouldn't have to deal with your emotional ups and downs alone. There is support out there for everyone. Mental health is kind of like a cycle. One day you feel good, you know. Sometimes you might be stressed and overwhelmed about how to deal with stuff. And other times you might feel stuck and challenged, like struggling with something bigger than what you can manage. That might lead to a mental health crisis. Throughout our lives, our mental wellness can change based on what we're going through. Mental health challenges don't have a single cause. It could be your experiences or the chemistry of your brain. What's most important is that you take care of yourself. No matter how you're feeling, there is help for you. I've had my own mental health challenges. I want to share my story with you because I wish I'd reached out for help earlier than I did. I was always feeling low, tired, and noticed that I was getting irritated and angrier. I started sleeping more to try to forget about how I was feeling. I kind of knew something was wrong because I couldn't shake it. I'd been facing more stress than normal, but I come from an immigrant family. Everyone holds me to really high standards. I felt like there's no room for mistakes or struggles. I didn't want to reach out because I didn't want anyone to think I was weak or crazy. There was also a language difference. I didn't even know where to start. I wanted someone that looked or talked like me to understand. I felt so uncomfortable and lost. I finally talked to one of my friends who went through something similar. She told me about the differences between seeking a professional versus talking to family and friends. She said her therapist walked her through everything, like you can get better by doing this, and will continue to, monitor how you feel. I decided to go to a community center first. It made me feel less alone to find a community of people I related to, and made me feel more comfortable with going to therapy in the future if I ever have problems again. There are so many ways that people can take care of themselves. Most people have their own struggles at some point. You might experience physical or emotional changes or changes in your routine. You know yourself best, so pay attention when you're feeling off or different. It's okay not to be okay right now. We encourage you to talk about your feelings, even if you're facing more stress than normal and want to vent. You can learn ways to cope. You can find out how to take better care of yourself, and you can feel better both mentally and physically. Everyone needs a little support sometimes. You can choose what's most comfortable for you in your situation. Talking has a way of making people feel better, of giving us a sense of relief. And if there's something a little more serious going on, there are things you can do to feel better. Just don't try to do it alone, because you're not alone. Reach out. It's worth a try.
You are watching The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman, exclusively on ABC Amba TV.